Episode 8 of the Mighty Fuzz podcast. I am here with my brother, John Matland. John Matland, we always speak about the women in this movement, but there were a few men. And today I bring you John Matland. He was one of them. He stood in front of the sanitation. He stood for the sanitation workers. He has been a mentor to many in this movement. Welcome, John.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you say mentor because I feel like there's so many of us just learning in this group, and we're just brave enough to say hell no. And that's a quality that I didn't realize I had my whole life. And now looking back, I did, but never in the way that we're doing now.
John, and watching when you stood up at sanitation, which, by the way, I did not know Mitch was with you that night. Shout out to Mitch. I did not know he was with you that night. Watching you stand and Danny Presti was so like, we have to get active. And for me, especially hearing the women, some of the first freedom rallies that I went to had women saying we need more men there. You were there, Danny Presti was there, Mitch was there, Ray was there. And I immediately was like, I have to just kick into gear, me and my wife. And it's just that you kept forging freedom forward. Like you kept pushing the envelope. It went from rallies, it went to doing protests, and you've been such a pioneer in this movement, brother.
It's really bizarre because I was doing the whole Max Public House thing, which I'm sure we're going to touch on, and from there it went to healthcare. And I was watching, and I said, since Max Public House, I said, eventually there's going to be a point where we're, not allowed to do certain things. I'm going to watch how I say it, but not allowed to do certain things without certain paperwork. And we're not allowed to have jobs. And I knew it was coming. And I just kept fighting because it happened with Danny, and it was right there. And who are we if we don't stand by our friends and our family? So I watched Danny fight to keep that business open. And I stood with him. And then I knew, I would need people also at some point to stand with me because, again, it's a small amount of people. We outnumber the people that control the movements and the narratives, a small amount. I mean, that's all it takes. And yeah, it was like when I went to the city for the first time for one of the city gatherings, it was September 13th. And it was all the teachers in Foley Square. And there was like no dudes. There was like no one. I remember I saw Ray that day. There were certain people that I saw that were part of the movement, and I had already met Kevin from Max Public House from New York Freedom Rally, and it was like, there's not a lot of dudes here, but it'll come to them. Right now, they're going for teachers, and it's predominantly there's a lot of women teachers, and when it comes for them, they'll stand up. I don't know why they're waiting, but instead they were like, look, they were able to get the teachers and the healthcare workers to bow down. And when it came to like the cops, the firefighters, sanitation, they were morally beat because they never got their asses off the couch. So they never even got to kick into gear. That's the truth of the matter.
John, we have never spoke before, and I see it the same way. And, I really... I try to say it nicely because I know people get offended very easily. It's very touchy, because everybody, they personalize it. I always hear it always comes to the brass tacks of it, which will be crazy to you because you're one of the men that actually stood. You had a job, and I would like to circle back to that. But when I hear the men, the reasoning always is, I have a mortgage, I have kids. And does John Matland not have a mortgage or kids? Does Crystal DiLorenzo not have, it's a teacher in school? It's just, to me, it's like, I don't understand how they don't understand that this will affect them, brother.
Yeah, for that it is, I tell everybody, I understand that pain of that decision, feeling like you're stuck. And I also tell everybody, I worked outside the system. And what I mean by that is, and that's a sign also, get yourself off the system. And how you do that is become A, ungovernable when government becomes tyrannical, and B, find a way of being self-sufficient. Now, we can make fun of basement dwellers all you want, but I lived in a basement apartment owned by a relative. So what does that mean? That means I didn't have to pay rent. So I'm upfront about that. Like,
Wow.
I had a cheat code. I was a built-in game genie. If this was Super Nintendo, I took that mortgage thing and it was not there. I owned my own car. I didn't have any payments. So I was able to literally just shut down. And I get that people can't all do that. I get they had hard decisions, but I did say this and I meant it. I meant it with all my being. I was willing to live in a damn tent. I don't have kids. I have a cat, and I don't know how I'd keep that cat from running away, but I'd also figure that out. There was no way, no how that I was going to comply. Period. End of discussion. Some people, they did not have that ability, and I get it, and I don't judge them. But even if they partook to keep that career, again, I was in my job for 15 years. I was working to get into it before that for 17, and I was in healthcare for 18. So at the point that I lost my career, I was working in healthcare for the same system essentially for half of my entire life on planet Earth. And that's
Wow.
that's a sick
Wow.
way to look at it. I was
Right.
literally there for 18 of 36 years at that moment that they fired me. And I watched the corruption and I knew it would get crazy. I watched how I was framed for a banner that came off the hospital during a protest that I arranged. Freedom of speech scares people. Again, it's a very small amount. And you could say, I have the Canada shirt on today for Sons and Daughters. And in Justin Trudeau language, a small fringe minority. Well, that small fringe minority shuts the whole entire government basically of Canada down by parking trucks and honking horns and playing ice hockey.
Yeah.
When we have protests, I pointed this out in the last speech. We had more people at like our 5th protest on Landis Avenue in Staten Island than the entire elected body of the federal government, the New York state government, and the New York City government combined. Just we the people on a street corner in Staten Island. So if you think small amount of people doesn't scare them, imagine if 15 different protests happened on Staten Island and there was 1,000 at each. That means we've outnumbered them 15 times over on just Staten Island. So I mean, there's ways to look at it, and people forget the power that they have, and they forget why the government in the USA was created to begin with. And that's because we play that game. You're going to touch on this, I guarantee you, at some point. I love that we keep saying the word democracy.
Yes.
It's just group rule. And we're a constitutional republic. We all have representation. So it's not just, it's group rule and you have to take one on the chin if you don't like it because it's for the better of the people. No, we're all represented. That's why we go and we get members in Congress. That's what we're all represented. It's like a chain of command, and they represent what we want. And just before, I know I'm on a rant right now. Just before we got on, I was watching.
Cooking, bro. You're cooking. Keep it going. You're cooking.
I was watching what's going on with Kevin McCarthy and how they're going to do this vote to get him out.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to Matt Gaetz, and then I want to get his name right. Mike Garcia from California comes on simping for Kevin McCarthy. And I'm sitting there, I'm drinking my seltzer, and I have my sandwich in my hand. And I'm like, this is the guy who refused to come on my old show when I was broadcasting every day because I was running against Nicole Malliotakis. He told my producer, I will not go on his show. He's trying to primary one of my colleagues. So you see the nest of establishment swamp creature. I'd go on anyone's show. Like if I was in Congress right now and you said, come on my show, and you were running against somebody that I'm sitting with, I would say, hey, let the best man win. Right. That's the way this works.
That's right, brother. I would like to circle back to you working in medical, man, because watching all that happen. I see Crystal and I were watching online. We were watching what was happening to Staten Island, and we seen you guys in the streets. We seen the banner, that specific one. So you were there for 18 years before all this happened, before the mandates happened?
In that hospital, I was there for 15.
15.
And then I was at the North Sites outpatient facility. So I was there for 3 years before that. So technically between the same hospital, but just a different location. So yeah, I was there for 18 years. I got my job at the outpatient as a file clerk back when everything wasn't fully computerized and you had different file bays and x-rays you'd actually pull out. So I was a file clerk from when I was 18. The summer, I think I got my job July 31st, 2003. So you say like right there, I was 18 for only 2 months, almost 3 months.
So your whole adult life, you were doing this, and no trouble, nothing in your file up until this mandate.
Grade A, 5 stars. My managers used to have to apologize. They said, we gave you more stars than we're supposed to. They say we can only do that for a certain amount of people. We're not supposed to give those stars. We would give you 5 stars. And to use the word grooming, they were grooming me to be the lead of the day shift because I knew how to do every single procedure, including interventional radiology, where we were putting PICC lines in. And not all the techs, even though they're supposed to know it, knew it. So I was able to keep that going. I was taking care of the stock room. I was taking care of watching expiration dates. I was also licensed in CAT scan, where most of the CAT scan techs aren't. So you go down the line, like I was all set. I was going to go 8 to 4 like I was, but I was going to be the lead when the guy that's there retired. That was the goal with the managers that were in place. Even as a union delegate. So that's the fun thing where people are like, oh, you're a Republican, but you were a union delegate. And
Right.
I'm like, you got to understand there's certain things where unions go above and beyond and they save people that are just awful, that don't actually,
Right.
they shouldn't have a job, but they also protect people like me who was good and they came for me. And along with my union being a delegate, I kind of knew the rule set. And like I basically defended myself along with the union during my step 3 grievance where they had terminated me for the banner and I had to win my job back in 6 weeks of back pay just so they can fire me again because of I didn't have my papers to work.
I remember you talking about this in 2021.
2021.
2021 is that? Yeah. So you never been in any trouble. You actually excelled at your job from what you're saying, and you lost your job because of these mandates.
Yep.
That's why you lost the job. So I just want to just nail that down because people hear that differently in 2023 than they do in 2021. 2021, you were killing grandmas, even though you were in the medical field, which is the irony of that. But now people are hearing that different because they see it. Maybe they went a little overboard, and I think that's really important that you see a man that's good at what you do, that you probably were helping people, and because you wouldn't take a shot, they took you off the roster. I think that's really important.
What's really important is they still haven't filled all the positions. There's shortages throughout the entire health field, specifically in New York. Staten Island is inundated. There's positions everywhere. I even reapplied for per diem casual work where I can pick up shifts as need be when I'm in New York. And something very peculiar happened. And I don't know if I've even talked about this on a public situation like we're here on a show, but I applied for a job the day they announced it. They sent out an internal email, which obviously everyone that I know that still works there started texting me, you can come back, you could come back, we want you to come back. So I applied that day. They let that request sit there from July 10th, I believe it was, until toward the end of August. And all of these days went by. I think by the time, actually, it might have even been later, might have been in September. By the time it all came to a head, it was right before Labor Day weekend. Before it came to a head, it was a lot of days had elapsed. And they said, we chose to go with another candidate, which was not true, but it was like an auto email. But HR actually reached out and said, hey, here's another job rec you can apply for. But it was at the north site across the island, not where I had been working. My whole point is I want to go back to where I was working. That was my work family. So whether or not some of us disagree on certain things after what has gone down in the past few years, I don't care. The way I am, everything rolls off my shoulders and I'm unapologetically myself. I let you be you. That's the freedom of speech. And I will have a conversation with anybody at any time. And sadly, as most of the times, if they can't handle my point of view, they just turn into an angry person, cursing, making claims. But I don't flinch at that. I don't really care. You could say everything you want at me and I'm just calm, collected because I'm very comfortable with my stance and I can actually defend it and I don't have to become an uneducated, angry animal and yell and curse at you. It's unnecessary. But I want to go back to where I was. And at the end of it, they took down every request because I started to go and fill out another request for a South position. That got taken down. And then they wiped out every South position that was there.
Wow. So
And
they
I
downsized? They downsized?
They didn't downsize. No, they're trying to fill North. They're saying they're focusing on North. They communicated with me. We only want to focus on North because we have more of a shortage there. So that's where we're at. It just seems like all of these jobs had no one applying. It says it on the site. Be the first to apply. Be the first to apply. And when John Matland decided to apply out of nowhere, and then they said apply North, and I applied for another South job, every South job got removed that they've been trying to fill for months.
That's crazy.
So
Wow.
you tell me if that's
Yeah.
aimed. How does that work? They're
Yeah.
trying to make me go somewhere I don't want to go if I was to guess, because they think it's going to make me uncomfortable. But I think if anybody has learned anything about the people that have uh, waged war in this battle that we've all been fighting about freedom, I'm not going anywhere. And when I'm ready, if they never want to hire again, then they just don't have to hire anybody ever again. But they're going to run the same way it is because I'll apply when I'm ready.
So currently now you're in Florida, right?
Correct.
Okay. Are you working in Florida at this point?
I'm doing real estate. I
You're doing
have,
real estate. So you switch
yeah,
gears out of
I
okay.
switched gears and learning some new things. But I am at the point where I have my license to go into healthcare and back into radiology here for X-ray and CAT scan. I just don't know if I'm going to, but I have it, and I know that I could do it, and that's nice. It's just I'm enjoying what I'm learning right now, and yeah, I think that what you see here in on planet Earth more than ever in the past 3 years, when we would say communist revolutions, they don't want you to have God, they don't want you to have a belief in faith, they want you to feel small and powerless. All of that is to control you. Me, you could take my career, you could try to break my spirit, but somehow every day I emerge stronger and stronger without any fear. And that is where that resourcefulness comes from. And I'm finding another way and I'm enjoying it. And my word to everybody is basically accept that it's not all about you in this earth. It's about networking with people, and there is a higher power, whichever way you want to look at it.
Try King.
Because I can't possibly make any more lemonade. My lemonade stand is full. You give me all the lemons you want. I'm making some really good lemonade.
That's right, brother. That's right. You did bring up Danny Presti and Max Pub. Can we go back there and what exactly happened at Max Pub? And I think it's so important because that case, out of all the cases, the other mandates they like to funnel into trespassing and stuff like that. But with Max Pub, what most people don't know is that's literally the cops enforcing mandates which are not law and ruining a business. Can we go back to Max Pub 2021?
I would love to. Max Pub was basically one of the craziest times of my life, and it was a terrible amount of craziness, but fun because we were playing chess, and it was not fun for Danny. I think when I say fun, I meant that I felt really alive playing chess with a tyrannical force that we were going against, such a strong force, and outsmarting the governor and the mayor, watching them go on TV and bash what we were doing, watching them send out their foot soldiers, and we were like, not a chance in hell. I mean, that was that rebel spirit that you saw in 1773 with the Sons of Liberty. And that's kind of where this whole idea with Sons and Daughters of Liberty came up, because the daughters really took the torch and ran this one. So,
Yeah.
but it's like,
Yes, brother.
it was a wild time, and the NYPD wasn't enforcing it. It was the New York City Sheriff's Department, which de Blasio weaponized as his own police force, like the straight up Gestapo. And if we dive really deep into it, I mean, people need to understand they were seizing liquor from businesses, fining them $25,000 a pop if they saw someone without a mask. And Danny and Keith had just gotten that business open right when the first lockdowns came. They were staying afloat. Then the second lockdowns came and they were like, we're going to go bankrupt and we need to open. So when other businesses were getting hit with these crazy taxes, and I call it taxes because they're not fines, they're just illegal taxation, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 fines on your first strike for somebody not having a mask properly within 20 feet or something of your front door. You can't control everybody. First of all, you're a business. Let's get that straight. But they were going after people, and some of the establishments had the money, and they said, well, I need my liquor license so I can do it. Max Pub could not do that, and they could not close again. It was not possible. So when they decided to stay open, the same sheriffs that came and shut that down eventually seized all his liquor, blew his windows out, broke the lock, whatever they did at that point, changed the lock.
Oh, the sheriff did that?
Yeah,
Blew the
yeah.
windows out?
They might have blew the front window out. I'm not sure. They definitely broke through and then changed the lock. And they
Right.
offered, if I'm not mistaken, they offered the key to Danny, and they said, if you need to go in, we have the key. But at that point, there was a court order. If you entered the building, you go to Rikers for 90 days.
Wow.
Like, they declared it a public nuisance. They watched our live broadcast. The judge watched our live broadcast when we started reopening again, and those same sheriffs, they stole liquor from the evidence chambers. So wherever the storage was for the liquor that they seized, there was at least, I believe, 12 of them that got caught selling and stealing the liquor for their own use or selling it.
Wow.
You want to
Wow.
see,
Look
talk
at
about
that.
how corrupt
Oh,
this
you guys
operates.
can't buy your own bottles? You got to steal bottles? What do you? Uh, was there the Department of Health first that showed up? Were there fines from the Department of Health or the DOB?
Department of Health, I believe, showed up. They started going after the fact that the State Liquor Authority took away the liquor license, but they were not taking the liquor license off the wall. They said they're not doing it, and you're not allowed in. So they made all different postings. They looked for different laws. You're not allowed in without a warrant, blah, blah, blah. And then we were getting tip-offs. From my understanding, some of the tip-offs came from within the NYPD about when the sheriffs were coming.
Gotcha.
So NYPD would show up to basically observe what the sheriffs were doing and observe us. And it was like these weird standoffs because the NYPD didn't want anything to do with it at that time. They were in the beginning phases of learning that they'll do exactly as they're told, but they were doing it in slow motion. And they were trying to, we'll use the groom word, they were grooming everybody for obedience.
That's right.
They knew they couldn't just tell the NYPD to do it because there was a vast amount of people. They had to demoralize. And that's how communism and everything comes down to. You demoralize a population before you seize it. So at that point, the cops were saying, we're not enforcing masks. We're not doing it. And they believed they had a say in it. The same cops that'll now arrest you for stepping on a sidewalk for protesting. So you see where we're going with this.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were like, nice, NYPD standing down. This is exactly what we needed. We'll keep the power from being completely flipped. Well, here we are in 2023, and they demoralized enough people resigned. They got new people. They said, you want to pay your mortgages, arrest your fellow man, and here we are, they're doing it. But
don't worry, you'll be out in the morning. Don't worry. Let us just do our job so we don't lose our jobs. You'll be out in the morning, or I'll mess up your ticket. And, that's kind of the play. That's kind of the play, how they rationalize it.
Yeah, but it's not rational at all. And I mean, it started to go fast forward in 2021 with the different types of trespassing for going to eat, which you were part of the Cheesecake 6, so or is it Cheesecake 7? What is it, 6 or 7?
It was 6, yeah, 6 showed up.
So at that point, but
we went in with 45. But 6 got arrested.
That's how it goes. But so in 2020, it was a little bit different, the landscape. So they came, we would shut down, I just kept recording. I was literally recording. I'd go home, I'd edit, I'd sleep 2 hours, go to the hospital, go back to the bar, record, edit. Footage would be on all over the news throughout the different countries of the world. People from Australia started reaching out. It became this big story. Next thing I know, the footage that I'm shooting is on Tucker. Danny's on Tucker, and I'm like, okay, story is getting really big. Next thing, they're arresting him. They're going in the bar. One of the sheriffs literally smacks the camera out of the chef's hand who's taping. And they were like, you're not allowed to tape. And he's like, it's my right to do whatever I want with my phone. And they were like, you're not allowed to tape. I mean, all this is on, like, you could see it. And I edited it into the documentaries that I was making per day. And I mean, overall, it was 11 days, I think, before like we broke them. But then they did their different sting operations. They had one of the sheriffs go in and drink there, and they were trying to give Danny money for the drink. And he said,
like, no. You guys are criminals. They're treating businesses like they're criminals, like they're going down to get a cartel or something. They're going in to get the guy that has all the goods. You know what I mean? Yep. Like they're treating the bar like this. This is. It's scary that we're talking about Staten Island, New York City, guys. We are talking about, America, freedom. How are we free in a police state like this? And the main thing is they're not even enforcing law. That's the craziest part. But I wish we all knew, right? You always want what we know today. I wish we knew then. And this journey obviously forced that education, but we could have fought that all the way back with what we know today, especially with the New York de Jour teaching, man. I really want to link you guys because you say a lot of the verbiage of the founding times, which is so important for all Americans to learn. It's, they try to scare it with like racism and slavery and stuff like that, but these were troubled men. But what happened was they created and founded a system that keeps our individual rights, and that's what the republic is. And what took place at Max Pub is treason.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a government, and you brought up something very important there about the past and how everything is linked to racism to try to control a narrative. And it's gotten so many people scared. Like recently in August, somebody was like, they put up a post and they called you a white nationalist because I was speaking at an event in front of Gracie Mansion. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, aren't you upset? I'm like, I don't listen to stupidity. I was like, you ever hear of sticks and stones?
Right.
Like, you could call me whatever you want. If it's based in stupidity, I'm not going to waste my time on that. If anything, I'll debate the person on it and just basically school them. But call, like, everyone's crying wolf. They've watered down the actual power of racism. When somebody's racist, it's a disgusting thing, but they've watered it down. They say everyone's racist. So now you can't even decipher who's actually racist because everyone's a white nationalist. Everyone's racist. I've seen them refer to Spanish people, Asian people, Black people that do something as white nationalist or white supremacist, and it doesn't make sense. But you know what? We've gotten to that demoralization point where I can sell somebody a broken down clown and say it's a car. And as long as the TV says it and the groupthink says it, they'll think that this clown can put gas up.
Brother.
That's it.
Yep.
So, I mean,
it's important.
That's where we're at. And so you can't be worried about the words people put out about you. You have to just stand right there and say, I'm not moving. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio. I ain't effing leaving. You're not going. So
and the main thing is like people think like we can just reason with this. They're like you say, like I remember you saying this at freedom rallies. You can't comply your way out of tyranny. I will add, you can't vote your way out of tyranny as well, especially when there's a system in place. But I think this pressure that everybody's feeling is going to force people to kick into gear at some point. I think it's going to take, unfortunately, as we know, because we've been waiting forever. It's like watching paint dry for men to wake up. I think when something happens to the money, to the economy, which I believe we're close. We're close.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same, but we're watching the economy just fall. And when that happens, then maybe men will realize like this is very serious. This is not political or political differences. Like there's still people that think that we're in like, oh, you're just a Republican and look at things this way, or you're a Democrat. We're in trees, and I don't use that word lightly. I don't use that word lightly. What's happening today? What I'm watching, how law enforcement's being weaponized against the people, the military just going to this war in Iraq, Ukraine, all the money going out to Ukraine, the people coming in, which we will get into Staten Island next. But I just want to say this, I have no personal problem with the migrants themselves. They are just pawns. We've been living in a sanctuary city forever. I just actually walked one of the migrants, a lady, we just walked to her house because she was carrying a desk by herself like a beast. She's had a desk on her back. Me and my wife just walked her. I don't have no problem with the people per se. I have a problem with the government paying for this. Our money being used for this is a form of treason, because once it becomes about that they get amnesty to vote, you are now messing with the elections.
Yeah.
Which is, the military should kick in at that point. It's not even us. The military should kick in.
100%. And it goes back to the same thing. It goes back to no taxation without representation. If our tax dollars are being used for foreign citizens, illegal aliens in the country. So if everyone's claiming asylum, obviously you need to go through which cases are really asylum. I read the other day that they took a family from Germany that's been here for 15 years, and it took them this long, rejected them. They're going back to Germany
Yeah.
because they wanted to come here for asylum to homeschool. So if everybody's coming here for asylum, the question becomes, okay, but when does it, when do we vet them, and when can we get them an actual court case? So we had the Remain in Mexico thing in place for a while. That got taken away. We had different things like Title 42 that they utilized. That got taken away. Now you're putting them into sanctuary cities and they're misinterpreting the law, or they don't know if they have standing to not pay for them and house them. But they already said it's at the expense of the U.S. citizen. So at that point, we should say, okay, it's at our expense. Now we refuse to pay. I mean, at this point, we're not
100%.
You say,
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
And more people should say it. Like, at this point, we are now paying taxes to the tyranny. We're paying for our own tyranny on every level. And I know a lot of people are scared to say what you just said, but it needs to be said. This has to stop.
I think this could be a court case. Like, I think this can be an actual court case. And I mean, I know there's different legal avenues that de jure takes, but when you're utilizing our tax dollars, taking away what we already have. So Mayor Adams has already said, hey, we're not going to we're going to let some of your programs go away. We have to redirect the funds. So your safety is going to be at risk because we're not going to do overtime, and we're going to have to slash overtime, say for the NYPD that might be in a subway so now they have the robot that looks like a garbage can, which is ridiculous. I mean, if New York City has a brand, they really nailed it with this. Our technology even looks like steaming shit. Sorry.
That's right. R2D2. We got R2D2 on the M train right now.
Correct. So, and how has anybody not, if I saw that thing in the subway, I would go right in its face and say, who told you to come here? I wouldn't let it move.
Yeah.
It's not against the law. I'd have a conversation with that thing. I would hope that they would put it on the news and say, person badmouths Mayor Adams to his garbage pail on wheels. So that's first off. But if you're not using the tax dollars for the people that you're already taking out, which we're already on the system, and they're saying, okay, the tax dollars are going to better your life, your neighborhood, and promote society, but you're letting society fall apart and you're giving it to people that aren't even citizens. That's not us. Whoever said that I was giving money away? That's what they put commercials on TV for, where I can decide to donate. So I did the best thing I could do. I said, I can't stay in New York. You know what? I was going to try to fight on that federal level because I felt that at this point, it would be mind numbing. I was going to run for city council after that. Right after I lost to Nicole, I said, if I run, I'm going to run for city council once Joe Borelli's done. I was really on that route. And I even said it in March when I was down here in Florida. We rented again for a month at that point. We were looking for property. We were just trying to figure it out. I said, I'm going to run for city council when Joe Borelli's done. And then the next 4 weeks, some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen came out. And I'm like, I can't sit in city council and act like I could change this when all of these radical people are going to be like, yes, we should have crack pipes in your kindergarten class for them to use if they need it. Like the stupidity.
Yeah, it's wild.
I can't just take a paycheck. I can't be like, oh, I'm city councilman and I get whatever my salary is. Like, no, if I'm not actually doing something, I don't want that as a job just to collect $200 and pass go. No.
John, you know what? People don't make these connections. You know, when we have this socialist movement that is arise in the last, I would say, decade, maybe longer, that is, they speak about white supremacy as a system, right? We're starting to see that, you know, this corporation that took over our republic years ago, and I don't know if you know the history on that, but we're starting to see the face of that because we're shaking the cage. The socialists, they speak about white supremacy, and where that originates from is a system, a casting system by race. That's their complaint, but their solution is to give government more power. Their solution is to give more taxes, more money into this system that is oppressing a certain race or certain people. And then white people get defensive because it's called white supremacy, right? So now we're in all the, and it's a perfect system to protect the system. But really, the same system is attacking John Matland that is attacking anybody brown or black. Just that we didn't know because we weren't shaking. We were just proudly paying taxes, eating apple pie, and waving American flags at Met games. Like we are all waking up to this system. I don't care what you call it, and this is what should bring people together. You speak so well, brother. You've been, honestly, I have so much respect for everything you've done in this movement, man, because I believe that you are waking up Republicans. I'm talking about the down the middle conservative that is more patriotic to the party than he is to principles.
Correct.
Does that make sense? And we have to have allegiance to the idea of freedom for our countrymen.
Yes.
That's how we get out of this. Limited government, pull it back a little bit, get them back to be constitutionally compliant public servants, not authority.
Yeah.
And that's why you always have my support, brother. Anytime you run, you have my support, man.
Well, thank you. And it comes down for me, like I said, when I decided to do this and make sure that I was in Florida for 6 months and a day, and I'm a resident of Florida. For me, it was, this is how I can stop paying those taxes to New York. This is that spot, because New York doesn't deserve my tax dollars. Luckily, Florida has no income tax. That's great.
A beautiful thing.
So still paying my federal tax. They're still taking they're still taking money from my pocket. I don't like what they're doing, but I'm explaining, like, there's ways that you can at least utilize the power that you have. So it's not up everyone's alley that they can just say, I'm going to move out of New York. Some people don't want to. For me, it after everything we went through, I was like, I'm still fighting for that. That's still like my home mentally. That's where I came from. That's where I spent my life up until 2023, really. So it's a fight that I will still keep, even when I'm only there for half the year visiting or whatever, or if it were less than half, whatever it is at that point. But yeah, there's a way. And then what you said also about waking up Republicans, I've had that where there's a lot of people that were really, really on the Nicole bandwagon while I was in the primary. And there was different factions. There was, can John beat Nicole? And if he does, can he beat Max Rose? But nobody's really looking at the statistics. We were an R11 district in that election. There was no way Max Rose was winning. He just did not have it. I told Max Rose that. It's not, it's you, it's not us. But at the end of the day, Max wasn't going to win that election. And I think he knew that. I think a lot of the politicians that are career politicians that want to make a career out of it, they run to get all those funds. That's a money thing. They pay people. And the fun thing about my campaign is we had less than $50,000. No one got paid 1 cent. It was literally 100% volunteer based. My biggest donor was me. I donated the most money to myself. So you go through it all, and it's just like, okay, why are we doing it? We're doing it for sincere. This is about freedom. And people they heard me on Andrew Wilkow's show, and they were like, he said that if Democrats were enforcing the law and wanted to put people behind bars that committed crimes and not just let them out, and the Republicans wanted to let them out, that he would vote Democrat, and they were offended. Wow. And I said, you don't get what just happened. I said, I literally took ideology, just changed the letter. So technically everything you stand for at this point would mean that you're a Republican, but there's a D next to your name. And you're saying that you would still vote for the Republican, even though they're doing everything you don't like. And that's why we're here, because there's so many Republicans. Yeah, they're not doing what the left is doing, but they're destroying our freedom by doing nothing or just marching and collecting and selling out our liberty every single day to special interests, to get money, and to be a part of the damn frat. And that's why, like, when Matt Gaetz does what he does, I like it, because he's mixing stuff up. He's not trying to be accepted and be a part of the big fraternity. He's just saying there's so many problems, and we're supposed to act like Kevin McCarthy has solved basically anything. The answer is no. We need to change Washington completely. And until people realize that, they're going to complain. They're going to go and vote. And if they're lucky, they're going to say, I got my person in. And then they're going to say, why are we still sending all of this money to the Ukraine? I don't understand. You voted for it. Nicole sends money to the Ukraine. That's what she does. I was very upfront about it and said, listen, this ends. I'm never voting for money to go to the Ukraine. And it's because it's funding what's going to turn into World War III. That's the
We're
big
there.
one.
We're there. We're there. We're
The
there.
money
It's
is
just not
not
on the
being
news.
yeah, the money is not being used accordingly. Like if there was a Cold War, we're in the boiling war right now, and
Yeah,
people just
big
don't
time.
understand it. And they're like, you are a Putin like you work for Putin. You're a Putin bot. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
you're a moron. Like, what are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you bring up Nicole, and we can go right into Staten Island, I guess. Watching you guys, you, Scott Lebedo, you guys have Curtis Sleevers out there as well. You guys have Lanza out there. You guys have Nicole out there. And it's amazing that you guys are holding them accountable. That's what we need. You guys are forcing them outside. I seen one Leroy Press video with Nicole standing on the ladder. I'm like, yo, they got this girl on the ladder, because she, to me, from where I am, and I don't know her, definitely don't know her personally. Just looking at her politics, she's definitely the establishment, or votes along the line of the establishment. You've done a great job pointing all that out, and I hope that changes. I hope we, the people of Staten Island, could put the pressure on her that even if she feels that way or those are her friends, the pressure of the people make her have a change of heart. I won't hold my breath, but let's
Don't.
hope, because she is in, right? She is in, and we want her to do her job.
Correct. I said this 1,000 times. It was never personal. There was a lot of people that were watching. We watched the infrastructure bill. We watched all these other things that Staten Island didn't want. And how do we just go and let it continually slide? And then we all lost our jobs. And what pissed me off the most was the day I held that protest. I got Scott, I got Danny and John Tobacco, and I made it look like they were running the protest and that I just shared the flyer. But I designed the whole entire protest. Like, it was my protest.
Wow.
But I was waiting for my lunch break. So I started the protest at the hospital at 11 a.m. I had Danny kick it off. By the time I went to lunch at noon, I went outside and there was like 200 people there. And I'm like, whoa. But it was the same day that Michael Dowling, the CEO, was renaming the building. They were cutting a ribbon, drinking champagne. Everything's fine, even though we're watching in a handful of days, we're either being forced to comply or we're being fired. And people are there celebrating. So I thought when I was watching one of the lives from inside, I'm like, oh, wow, Nicole Malliotakis is here. Joe Borelli's here. The politicians are coming down to say, no, this is what we need. This is what we need so we can start the fight on a political level and they can represent us and we can start branching out. 5.5 minutes later, I go to lunch. I step outside and I go right up to Danny and everyone's cheering because I did take the helm of this medical movement against these mandates. And I see Danny. I'm like, where's he's like, you got to speak. I'm like, yeah, definitely. But where's Nicole and Joe? I saw them. They were out here. And he goes, they came out from drinking champagne. They saw cameras and they walked alongside of us acting like they were taking it in, got their pictures for the advance, and then they dipped.
Wow.
So now
Wow.
I'm sitting here and I'm
See?
like,
I'm just watching from the outside and I'm like, oh, they're there. They're supporting.
Exactly. It's all optical illusions here. So now I'm like, I was excited to go speak with Nicole and Joe and be like, this is what we're facing. I have all of these people growing behind me. I have it across the nation. So you could take it in a federal way. I had 1,000 people in a Signal chat, like just grassroots spread in like 2.5 weeks. And they're gone. So I got on that megaphone. That was actually the first time I ever publicly said, like, yo, I'm going to possibly take your seat. I don't know who I was aiming at. I was just spraying threats at that point. I was like, there was politicians here. And if you're not standing with us, well, then you know who's going to take your seat. I was like, you're looking at your replacement. And I was furious when I said it. And you could hear it in my voice. And then the infrastructure bill came. And that was right on the heels of after I had just got arrested for standing in front of the dump truck. And when I'm standing in front of that truck, I just kept saying to myself in my head, if I was a politician, say I was a congressman, say I was Nicole Malliotakis, if I was in her position, I would have went there and put like cement boots on my legs and said, take me. I ain't moving.
Right.
Drag me with these cinder block shoes on. And you
Right.
know what? That's when you really stand up. And people didn't understand that. That's what I kept saying, the fight that I would bring. Yeah, I didn't know politics to the level of the career politicians. And it's probably the best damn thing that could happen.
Right.
I didn't spend my whole life wanting to get into politics. Again, I was hoping to be the lead tech on 8 to 4 at Staten Island University Hospital. The shit by me being, in the words of Scott Lebedo, I was sucking up the milk and honey. And even though I was active, I was never active. Scott was active. Scott was dressed as Christmas trees running around in the Staten Island Ferry to go against political correctness when they wouldn't say Christmas tree and they called it a holiday tree. Like, Scott has never stopped, so I give him credit for that. I was like, I see tyranny, I'm going to fight against it. But when you wipe someone's whole career out, they woke up something inside of so many of us.
Yeah.
That we never thought. Did you ever think you'd be standing on a street in Staten Island yelling just truth at a battalion of SRG and 150 white shirts about what they're seeing in that tyranny? None of us ever saw this happening. None of us. It's physically impossible. We've just entered the complete bizarro world and we're navigating it.
It literally pulled us in. And, the hardest thing is not seeing other people go, wait a minute, if I don't get involved, even though it's not affecting me today, if I don't get involved now, it will one day, because, I work for myself. It was before my wife was even mandated. And I was saying, she thought I was losing my mind. I'm like, Biden's going to mandate this. And she's a school teacher. And I'm like, this is coming to you. And she's like, nah, I don't think so. They've never done something like that before. There's ways around, like the flu shot and stuff like that. And when it came, she kicked in the gear immediately. And it's like, I learned when it hits people's doorsteps, they show up, but it has to hit the doorstep. And so many New Yorkers are able to, maneuver through these issues and feel like we're just a little over the top. Have you seen that?
I think that a lot. I think your wife was a good case. I think a lot of people, sadly, they were just like, well, they got the last profession they went for, so I have a mortgage. Again, we were going to that big protest where there was like 25,000 people going over the Brooklyn Bridge with the city worker protest.
Heartbreaking, bro.
And I'm like, this is monumental. This is historical. And leading up to all of this, like right after that, I was like, between now and the election, there is 4 days. 4. Now, this is the craziest stuff you'll ever think about if you just break it down. 4 days, if every city worker was like, I am not doing it, suspend me, I'm taking the week, because you're only getting suspended for the week. So if you're going to comply, you can at least wait until after the election, in theory. But you had the ability, the city sponsored you to strike and shut the entire city down. 4 days, no pay. And they didn't do it. I put up a reel, and I had a whiteboard behind me. I was like a mad scientist. And I'm like, you have a legal strike. This doesn't involve your union. This involves zero. This is legitimately, the city is giving you an out. Don't take it. Just don't take it. 4 days, shut the whole city down. It's over. And it's a legal strike sponsored by Bill de Blasio. You've done it. I said, we've hit the jackpot. And everybody rushed to get it. And now I'll tell you this much. The people in healthcare, they were hit with, they're going to mandate the third installment. I'm going to try to navigate any of these flag words here. So the third one, and that was after December, when everyone that tried to comply their way out of tyranny still got it. I was at home. I got it, and I didn't have to comply. I was just at home, sick. Right. But they said the deadline was somewhere toward the end of February. And Greg, they all lined up. They started to line up. Some of them pushed it to the end, but some of them were like, I know I'm going to have to get it or they're going to fire me. We watched them fire people. And I know people personally that I worked with that got a re-up. And they got very sick again, like they did the first time. And they had to stay home for 2 days. And on their second day home, Hochul announced, I'm waiving it. We have enough, I don't know how to word this for this, but enough natural and enough people complied that we should be okay. But what happened was enough people said no.
They forced, right. Right.
They waited it out and they were like, I'm not going to do it. What's going to
They
happen?
sweated everybody out. Yep.
And if they did that when we were first fighting against this as healthcare workers, it never would have went to the teachers. It never would have went anywhere. The healthcare workers could have shut healthcare down across the nation. If we just said no, they would have waived it. It would have been gone.
Bro, the teachers were such a snowball that they wanted it. And there was such a small minority that didn't want it that it wasn't even it was just a rollover. And the teachers that did fight, if you remember at the rallies, they were like, where are the sanitation, the firemen, the police? Because when it came to the sanitation, firemen, police, the teacher was like, I'm not sticking up for them. They didn't stick up for us.
They said it. You're next.
And it's you know, and I get the sentiment, but I'm like, no, we gotta, you know, we're in this together. All the buzzwords. Where you really see the signs that it's not for your health, and this is example 350 for everybody watching, was the MTA. The MTA, they knew they couldn't put pressure on because they're the bloodline that gets everybody to the jobs. Majority of the MTA is brown and black people as well. So what they did is they gave them spit tests. They didn't make the swabs, and there was no mandate on getting the shot for the MTA.
Yeah, and
So
you know,
there goes the health, and they're around people just as much, if not more, than anybody else that's in city workers.
yeah, and I mean, this, like, the whole entire experience, it all weaves together so well. I'm gonna go back to when this all started. It initially started for me because the day they announced mandatory PCRing. And I said no. I told everyone it was never going to happen. I already had an interview. They did a session where they sat down. It was me, a pharmacist, and someone else. Only 3 people were brave enough to go to this meeting with HR where they were doing, like, they were polling how it would be if they made it mandatory. They said, would it be something that made you want to comply if we forced you to do weekly PCR testing? And I said, you're not going to force anybody to do anything unless you make everybody do it. And I said, because science has proven that everybody will still carry and pass and get sick from what we're dealing with. And they were like, well, I said, no, well, I'll give you articles. Would you like articles? And I started, like, I thought that was on July 13th of 2021. I was on vacation. I was in Florida, actually, funny as it goes. And I'm on this Microsoft Teams thing. I'm taking screenshots every time they put it. They had like this monkey survey where you just like choose, we're going to ban you from employee events, employee appreciation barbecues, take away your parking rights. This is what they were threatening us to comply. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, what happens if it becomes mandatory? I was like, well, if it becomes mandatory, you're going to have to terminate me. And they went, oh, okay, we'll write that down that you're going to resign. And I said,
look at that. That's not what you said.
I never said I was going to resign. I said,
right.
You're going to walk into my department with security. You're going to serve me a pink slip, and then you were going to remove me from the. I said, I'm not willingly getting I'm not resigning. I said, I'm just telling you absolutely not over my dead body. And then I'm going to go report to work. Right. So they knew at this point, they were like, oh God, there's someone that's going to fight back amongst us. I had no idea what that would yield. The next time I walked in the hospital, the pharmacy department came up and they were like, sir, that was amazing things you said on that interview. And I'm like, what? And they were like, and then I started seeing PAs from around the hospital. Next thing I know, I was like, we were having meetings like they would have in pubs during revolutionary times. We'd be in like an x-ray room and there'd be PAs, doctors, pharmacists, and they were like, what's our next plan? And in the middle of it, I'm the leader and I didn't know how this started. I just said no, but it's and this is a message to everyone out there. Courage is extremely, extremely contagious. Right. More than any strain that's out there. When you see somebody say no, and that burning desire to say it is inside of the same person, they will be empowered by you to say, hey, I too can say no. It's hard to break away from that groupthink, but it started, and that's where that whole group went from. But going back to like seeing how this works, when I went for I went for the first mandatory test because I got a meeting on the books with the head infectious doctor, and I was going to go debate him. I was actually at that point in discussion with Project Veritas about recording it all. And so we were going back and forth, and I was like, they sent me this whole entire like contract essentially. And I'm like, all right, I don't have time to go through contracts. I'm recording anything I do myself. And I already know how to edit documentary. Like I could put this together if I want to release something. So that's not a problem. I go for the PCR test and this little guy right here is recording everything. So I walk in and the woman from HR who ran that monkey survey is like, oh, did you get your thermos for the thank you for joining? I said, the thermos. I was like, you guys are going to fire me next week. You think I want your thermos? She looked like she took a crap in her pants because again, everybody was scared because I was willing to say what needed to be said. There was no way I was going down without a fight. It just didn't exist. So I sat down in that chair. The woman comes over and I'm looking around and I'm like, did you wash your hands? And she's like, there's no sink in this room. So now they're testing all of us infection carrying non-compliant people per week. And they have the Department of Health for New York running it, not even an internal thing. They don't have access to the actual hospital because you have to be scanned in, and they don't have a sink to wash their hands. So they're going and putting gloves on, sticking stuff up other people's nose, and this is supposed to be in the name of preventing infection.
Right.
Not washing their hands, and then just alcoholing it and putting another pair of gloves on. So then as she's there, I'm like, why are you going so deep? Like I was going after everyone. She's like, I have to go this deep. And she's like, you understand why they're doing this to you. They want to make you uncomfortable.
Right.
And I have her on recording
100%.
saying this, the Department of Health.
Good.
So I made a case against this. And it's like, whatever I'm going to decide to release, if I ever do, I mean, that's between me and the hospital, I guess, at this point. But I have a lot of my own one-party consent state recordings about how I was treated. And it's really bad for them, down to the fake written statements that were sworn affidavits that they saw me on the roof throwing down the banner. They watched me. I had like a whole entire security team write lies and swear and attest to it so they can terminate me. And I have all of this on recording. Like I have all of these statements. Like, so it's for me, it's private right now. That's the way I want it. But it's like,
sounds like you got them though.
Oh, I got.
You got. I mean, if you got them saying what you just said, I mean, that's clear cut. John, we're already up to the hour. I just can we get an update on what's going on in Staten Island? Where are we at with Staten Island?
Where we're at was the judge again ruled officially in our favor. The city is going to appeal or is appealing, but they didn't listen to it. So they're still busing people in the Villa location, in the Midland location. And I just read before I came on here, the Staten Island Advance said that the deal, allegedly, that this just became known, which call me crazy. The deal is that they will be possibly closing St. John Villa by mid-November. That it's only set to house migrants until mid-November as the current deal stands. Now tell me, where did you hear this before? You heard this before when they went to court. They got a ruling that said they could never mandate anything like this again. And then the city said, we're taking it all away. So it's null and void. And we want the lower court's decision struck from the record. That way there's no case precedent.
Right.
So mysteriously now St. John might close by
what's going to happen to the migrants?
They don't care. They'll put them anywhere else. But they're trying to do this, I think, and this is, call me crazy, they're going to ask the court to say, now that this doesn't matter anymore, we would like the lower court decision to be vacated. And then they're going to play hopscotch, and it's going to be just like Spirit Halloween stores. Migrant shelters are going to pop up for 2.5 months, and before you could get any legal traction, they're going to close. They're going to move them to another location, and then they're going to keep doing it so you can never really get a legal action. I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to subvert the legal system because of how slow it works.
Got you. Well, while I got you on, I just anybody that attends these protests, I've heard like a month ago, 2 months ago, I forgot who I was watching, and they were talking about how they're going to try to get people to get into fights with the migrants to bring the division for political reasons. And guys, try your best. Keep it focused on, remember, I know everybody calls them illegals and stuff like that. Your government doesn't think they're illegal. The NYPD doesn't think they're illegal. So really the problem is with who we're paying taxes to. Try to keep the focus on that. John, you've done a great job focusing on the bigger problem at hand, which is our government is overreaching, infringing on our rights. You've done a great job, and I just want to commend you, Scott Lebedo, even Curtis Lee has been saying that the migrants are pawns, and I really appreciate that sentiment, because we can't lose our humanity at the same time we have to protect the humanity in Staten Island. So I get the balance of that. And it's been a pleasure to have you. Can I count on you? Can we come back and get some more updates on Staten Island, brother?
Of course. Whatever I know, whenever you want me, just let me know. Definitely, I'll stop on in again.
Brother, you got a friend and an ally on me, and anything you need from me, bro. You like I said, man, you've shown a lot of courage in this city, and I'm really proud of you, bro. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you. And I think that I would be failing if I didn't tell you you're kick-ass yourself, buddy. So
Thank you, brother.
The speeches that you give and the way you inspire is it's up to all of us to keep doing that. There's no one person. Everyone listening to this right now, watching this, it's up to you to do the same thing with the people you know.
Where could they reach you, John?
At We the People Are the News on Instagram. They verified me. It took me 3 years, but they finally accepted me.
You got your blue check?
They gave me a blue check. When I was running, they refused to do it. And I think that's for multiple reasons. But yeah, We the People Are the News. And then Getter, and that's the same on Truth Social. And then Getter and Twitter. I use Twitter a lot. That's WTP. Oh, God. We the People Are the News. So WTP Are the News. ARE the News.
Awesome. Episode 8 with John Matland. And we're out. Yo, thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
100%.
It was really good. Yeah, bro. What is really happening? Now we're off. What is? Yeah, hold on.